I'm the Director of Member Experience and Programs here at MSBA, and we are excited to connect with your section virtually today. YLS, as Angela is very involved with you, and you all are doing very good work and are still very active in all of your efforts and all of your section communications. So we wanted to provide an opportunity today to give you a little bit of an update first on what MSBA has been doing. And we are lucky enough today to have Judge Butcher on the call, who I think needs to leave a little bit before 9. So we'll ask him to jump in a little bit later to speak to us. And then we'll open it up to all of you and your section chair to talk about what's been going on, connect with you, check in, and feel free to ask MSBA any questions at that time. So I put together just a few slides to start us off. And we do have a few directors here on the call today, so I will turn to them as we go through. I think we have Andrea Terry, Lisa Kaplan, and Richard Montgomery. Is that right, Angela? So I'd like to start off just by giving you some background on our advocacy and outreach efforts, and I will have Richard jump in a little later to give even more details. But we've had thousands of attorneys that have joined us in the last few weeks as we put on original programming through our webinars, town halls, and virtual section meetings. We've also been busy connecting with Maryland leaders, including the Maryland Judiciary, where we've shared over 150 questions and responses with the members. With the federal judiciary, we've been speaking with Judge Berdar, and we'll share those comments with you soon. We've also liaised with the governor's office and the Office of Legal Counsel there to talk about upcoming executive orders and to discuss legislative interpretive guidance. And we have provided all of this information free of charge on our COVID website that the public can access because we think this is really important information for the entire profession. We've also been conducting weekly calls with some of the largest firms in Maryland to talk about strategies and ways to cope in the midst of COVID. We've also been working with the Maryland Chamber of Commerce, and I'll ask Richard to speak to that in a moment. We've increased the frequency of our weekly communications to members. So we have an e-weekly on Tuesdays and then a weekly roundup on Fridays with court updates, legal news, and MSBA content. This issue will have a digital bar journal. Just given what's been going on, we're not able to print. That should be coming out in a few weeks, and we'll have a lot of really good content, COVID and non-COVID, for all of you. And we're providing all this content, as I said, for free through June 30th, just to support the profession. We also have a dedicated COVID website that we're updating regularly that covers the variety of topics that you see here. We're always open to adding more resources, so please reach out to us if you have any suggestions. And I'll turn to Andrea Terry now if she can give us an update on where we are with webinars.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks, Shally. As Shally mentioned, we've had more than 8,000 lawyers join us, members and non-members, obviously, over the last 6 weeks. We've done dozens of webinars and town halls, and joining us live and then viewing the on-demand. We've just had a terrific turnout and terrific interest. As most of you probably know, a lot of our practice areas encountered issues immediately once the pandemic hit. Everything from labor and employment lawyers being swamped with clients wondering how to deal with staff and customers and so forth. So the sections stepped up immediately to start delivering content that they knew was going to be just really immediately and urgently helpful to their practice areas. So I really appreciate that. We have a great staff that's been supporting these webinars. We do practice runs. We have a terrifically skilled videographer, Bill Hall, who supports these webinars and handles all of the tech platform concerns. So we really just need our sections to provide the content, and we provide all of the outreach, letting everybody know that it's happening. We do the marketing, registration, and support the logistics. and we just rely on you for content. And the labor and employment law section has stepped up. The business law section did a terrific presentation last week on force majeure and business disruption issues around insurance concerns. And ADR did 2 webinars in the first 2 weeks, because obviously mediation being a confidential process, that's impacted quite a bit. So the practice areas are really changing and having to flex a lot during this pandemic, and we really appreciate the sections stepping in to, fill the void where your fellow practitioners need information. So if anybody has any ideas or would like to, reach out to your practice area, feel free to email me, and we'll provide all the logistical support that you need.
Thanks, Andrea. Could you also talk about our CLE catalog and what we're doing now?
Sure. As Shally mentioned at the top of the meeting, we're now making all of our on-demand CLE programs free. A coupon code has been distributed and it's right there on your screen. We've sent it out to all the listservs. We've put it in our e-weekly. It's on our blog, and we'll continue to promote that and circulate it. So you can see the free CLE MSBA coupon code right there, and that will give you access to our entire on-demand catalog, and that's for members and non-members. We really believe the entire profession needs our support right now, and that will be valid through the end of June 30th. And so, pass that along to any lawyers that who are looking for some continuing ed during the pandemic.
Thanks, Andrea. I'd like to turn to Lisa Kaplan now, who's the director of our Lawyer Assistance Program, to give us an update.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us this morning. We have been very busy on the wellness front as far as the information that we have on the COVID health and wellness page. And we have everything from yoga to home workouts to online classes. There's one on happiness on there. Tip of the day, there are resources for emergencies. There's also resources for 12-step meetings. My support group that I started is going to run through the end of May. It's Wednesdays and it's at 2 o'clock. It's been a small, intimate group, but it's been a great group. It's discussion format, and we just talk about a lot of different issues that can help during this difficult time. And as far as the Lawyer Assistance Program, don't forget that it is available for any type of problems. It is not just a substance abuse program. It can help with any type of problems, and it is free, it's confidential, it's available to all lawyers in Maryland. We have a statewide network of counselors. You can make a referral if you're ever concerned about an attorney and concerned about their mental health. You can call me. It's completely anonymous. They will never know you've called. You will not get them in trouble, but you may end up saving a life. We also have financial assistance for mental health and substance abuse. A lot of people are struggling financially right now. It can help with weekly counseling. So if you're in weekly counseling, you're having a hard time maintaining that because of finances, give me a call. We can work that out. We have helped people with weekly counseling, with inpatient, outpatient treatment, with going to a psychiatrist. So please reach out if you need to. I'm just an email, phone call away. Thanks.
Thanks, Lisa. And as I mentioned, we do have Judge Butcher on the call with us, and I know he has to run into court soon. So I wonder if we could just turn to you, Your Honor, to just check in with us and this group and give them an update of what you're up to.
Yes. Good morning. Can you hear me? Okay. Thanks. This section is uniquely situated because obviously the young lawyers are, in my opinion, the face of the MSBA. And so you guys are going to be in a unique situation once we get back going, because it's going to be a lot of the younger lawyers or law students that unfortunately are affected more than others when we have some type of issue with the economy. And so as it relates to the courts, it's my understanding, obviously, we know we're going to be opening, hopefully, right at close to the beginning of June. But before then, there should be an opportunity for a lot of remote hearings for bail reviews as well as protective order hearings. So over the course of the next couple of weeks, I'm sure many of us have already started seeing some of the notices coming out from some different counties that are talking about what those policies and procedures are going to be for the courts to open, or at least to have some of these emergency meetings that are going to be taking place. And so it would really be great during this time frame that individuals that are interested in maybe finding another avenue of revenue, if you're a solo practitioner or a firm, something along those lines, to get that experience. If you partner with someone that's a little bit more senior or that has those experiences, so that you can participate in those remote hearings while you're kind of sitting at home, that's a kind of a great platform. In addition to that, some of the complaints or issues that we've heard, I'm also chair of the Criminal Law and Practice Section Council. There's a lot of solos as well as folks at law firms on the private side that are concerned about what that rollout is going to look like once the courts start opening. Many jurisdictions have talked about, example, on the district court side and circuit court, that for the first couple of days, they're only going to be working on protective orders, things of that nature. And so that means that you could, have a lot of cases in some different jurisdictions, and it's going to be hard for you to try to navigate and jump from courthouse to courthouse. So some of those things are issues that have been voiced and shared with the judiciary. And so it would really be good for the Young Lawyers section to think about following the advice of the MSBA to try to turn any type of questions or issues as we go over the next 30 to 45 days on things that the judiciary might not be thinking about, to make sure that we have everybody's interest covered. So I appreciate the opportunity, unless there was something else. I want to take up too much time.
Oh, that's great. Thank you so much, Your Honor, for that and for joining us this morning. If there is anyone on the call who has any questions or comments for the judge, feel free to jump in now, because I think we only have him for a few more minutes. Okay, I think I see everyone's still muted. And if there is anyone who is unable to speak on the phone, we can also click on the chat in the upper right-hand corner if you have anything you'd like to follow up with the judge today.
I have a very quick question for him, if I
Sure,
may.
please go ahead.
I practice up in Harford County. Good morning, Your Honor. And just wondering, I know that the judges have all been kind of getting the same information, but I've also been hearing that county to county, it's operated a bit differently. Is, kind of the remote hearings and, this new practice and, the processes, are they across the board for all jurisdictions, or is it going to differ from county to county based on the administrative judges and everything like that? Do you know?
Great question. Great question. And the easy answer is no. It is all different. Here in Anne Arundel County, for example, on the district court level, we have not done any protective orders at all. And we're not going to start that until May 4th. We've only been doing bail reviews and emergency petitions, things of that nature. And so we're going to start the remote protective order hearings, doing up to about 12 a day. And I think actually on the 29th, my administrative judge is going to be doing through the local bar association to highlight what that's going to look like. So, honestly, the easiest thing, because things are kind of different depending on where you're at. Prince George's has been doing hearings. I know a couple other jurisdictions have already been doing hearings. Is just to check wherever you have cases. And, the MSBA has been doing a really good job on communicating with the judiciary, but we may want to also check with our local bar associations to see if there's anything specific to that to that jurisdiction.
And if I can jump in, that's always been a question: is are we getting orders from the judiciary that are going across the board, or are there specific practices? So in Anne Arundel County, I know the circuit court has put out a whole remote proceedings guide, and they are expanding to a lot of different kinds of hearings. And the MSBA, while we've certainly had a lot of feedback from the judiciary and seen a lot of orders come out in rapid succession in response, often on Friday evenings around 6 or 7 when we're all sitting down to dinner. Oh, okay, here's another bombshell, right? But we have also been working with the administrative judges. Now that's our push to really understand the county specific procedures, because as the judge said, that it's so different from county to county, what capacity is, what their caseload is, what their case management, protocols and all of that are. So that's a piece that I want to just confirm the MSBA is working hard on, and we will have updates for you soon to provide as comprehensive a summary, a dashboard, if you will, that we can provide, especially as many of you practice in a lot of different counties.
Thank you very much, both of you.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. I wish I had a beard as good as Nate's over there, but looks like he's been working hard on that. But good luck. If there's any issues or concerns, I know a lot of us are around to try to assist, so that's what it's all about. So good luck. Everybody stay healthy and safe.
Thank you so much, Your Honor. Best of luck today.
Thank you, Judge Butcher.
Then I want to turn now back to Richard Montgomery. Richard, can you give us an update on our advocacy efforts with different Maryland offices, and then also talk about what are your thoughts on the General Assembly postponing their special session?
Thanks, Shelley. Good morning, everyone. We've been working closely over the last month or so with the Governor's Office of Legal Counsel, which is a little bit of a new process for us. They've been put in the position of having to work with various agencies of state government to craft executive orders to deal with emergency situations, unforeseen almost in every case, related to COVID-19. The two big ones that we've been involved with were the executive order authorizing sort of an expedited activation of remote notarization. There was a bill that was passed in the 2019 session that authorized remote notarization, but it had a delayed effective date until October 1st, 2020. So what the executive order did was it basically sped up the effective date with a stripped down version of the Remote Notarization Act from 2019. The executive order doesn't have all of the features dealing with educational requirements for notaries and all that sort of thing. It's just a very bare bones authorization that doesn't deal with a lot of specifics. Now, what they did do was they issued interpretive guidance of that executive order, but still people are sort of finding their way in terms of how it actually works. Fortunately, within the MSBA, we have a guru on this who was actually on that work group, who I try not to call every day, but it feels like I do, who's with the real property section. That was, as executive orders go, a relatively easy one because the General Assembly had already authorized the concept back in 2019. There was a second executive order that dealt with remote witnessing, principally in the area of estate planning documents. Now, logistically and politically, that was almost the opposite situation, because also in 2019, the General Assembly enacted an expressed prohibition against remote witnessing. And that was at the behest of the Estates and Trust section. And at the time, it seemed like a really good idea because they were concerned about undue influence on the testator. To make an absurd example, they were afraid of, seeing the testator on camera, but off camera, there's somebody with a baseball bat or something threatening them. So, they wanted to take that slowly and make sure that there were proper safeguards. So back in 2019, that prohibition seemed like a good idea. Fortunately, since the Estates and Trust section were the only proponents of that legislation, but now saw the truly dire situation we were in terms of trying to observe stay-at-home orders and travel restrictions and that sort of thing, but still recognizing the need for execution of estate planning documents. They, together with Senator Chris West, we all worked together and approached the governor's office of legal counsel to ask for a suspension of that prohibition. So that is in place as long as the emergency is in effect. Now, the problem will arise if the state of emergency is lifted before the next General Assembly session, because then unless the governor's office amends the executive order, and what I would hope that they might do is extend the executive orders through whatever the date of sine die is in 2021, absent a special session. So that there's the perfect segue into special session possibilities for 2020. When the General Assembly adjourned 2.5 weeks early back in March, which I believe was absolutely the right call, we had people working in such close quarters. You can have all the hand sanitizer portals in the world in Annapolis, and it doesn't really matter because you're really just on top of people all the time. There was the belief that they would come back towards the end of May to conduct a 2, 3, or 4 day special session to deal with some tie-up matters, just some cleanup matters that they didn't get to deal with during the regular session. The reality of it is now, if they do have a special session sometime in 2020, it's going to be all COVID-related matters. Well, one of which will be the budget deficit, because right now they're looking at a $2.8 billion shortfall. And as you know, the state cannot have a budget deficit by constitutional provision. Now, in terms of making budget cuts, the Board of Public Works can do that, but basically the treasurer is kind of the only representative of the General Assembly on the Board of Public Works. So ordinarily the General Assembly likes to have a hand in sort of synthesizing whatever cuts there are going to be. So there is the chance that there would still be a special session in 2020. We know that the General Assembly is looking at remote meeting and voting options. It's not clear, and I really don't want to bother counsel to the General Assembly because she's got enough on her plate without hearing from me when she doesn't need to yet, about whether there are provisions. I don't believe there are provisions in the Constitution for exactly where they have to meet, and do they have to be in the same room? Do they have to be in the same building? Do they have to be in Annapolis? I think Arkansas had a situation where they were trying to have their Senate meet within their capital, but have the House meet over in a basketball arena someplace across town. So, I mean, they're looking at really all sorts of options. They're concerned about security when they heard about the security issues with Zoom. That scared people a little bit because that was one of the first places people looked. So they're working closely on it. There is a COVID-19 work group, a joint group in the General Assembly that meets weekly by way of Zoom. But they've got to work out rules for proxy and voting and absences and what's excused and what's not excused, and all that sort of thing. So, I mean, I think they're working very hard on it, and we'll keep on top of whether they're actually going to call a session. One of the other things that Charlie and I have been involved with is the MSBA is now a member of the Maryland Chamber of Commerce, and there is a COVID-19 work group of the Chamber of Commerce that meets on Thursdays every week, and these are breakneck speed meetings. And I learned how fast I can actually type taking notes. But the early meetings dealt principally with the CARES Act and the Paycheck Protection Program, as well as the EIDL program. The problem for us was getting information from those meetings out to the membership, because everything changes so quickly. So by the time you actually write something about the status of the program, something either statutorily or politically has changed by the time you can get it to the website. So we're trying not to leave stale information on the website regarding that program. Andrea's shop has done. Andrea, I hope you'll talk a little bit about that. Glenn Frost and his folks have done some really great work on explaining the ins and outs of the Paycheck Protection Program in a couple of installments, and it's just been really fantastic. The one thing that's come up in the latest Chamber of Commerce briefing, especially now that we're examining states around the country talking about reopening, and in fact, some actually doing it, often against medical advice. There's a great fear within the business community, especially the small business community, about employer liability, especially if businesses open prior to a time when the prevailing medical experts locally are advising against it. So there's a great concern about liability within the business community if businesses open perhaps too soon, because right now nobody knows what too soon looks like. So we're trying to stay on top of that and keep the membership apprised of where things stand with that. And that was about it.
Thanks so much, Richard. Before we get into our discussion, I just want to highlight a few publications that we have. We're still going strong. Our publications department is very active and busy. And soon we'll have a upcoming book on ESI, judgment avoidance, and a criminal pattern jury instructions update, all coming in the spring, all available on our website for delivery, either being shipped to you or digitally. And right now we do have divorce and separation and practice manual for the Maryland lawyer, which is a great tool, especially for young lawyers. Lisa spoke to us about wellness. Just one other area I'd like to hit on is our Access to Justice partner to the MSBA, and they work very closely with the civil legal aid organizations and ensuring civil representation to Marylanders who are unable to afford it. They have done an incredible job in a short amount of time at putting together a specific COVID-19 resource page as well. And it has amazing content, both for providers and for the public, on important topics such as immigration, DV, landlord-tenant, and walking you through how you navigate those issues during the pandemic and with all of the restrictions from the courts and through the governor's orders. And so there's just a whole host of information, and it's updated regularly. They're also focused on, in addition to weekly calls they have with civil legal aid organizations and contributing to the questions and concerns that we are raising to these different entities, as Richard stated. They're also working on a public information campaign, thinking about funding concerns as the emergency continues, and also looking at what disaster legal services Maryland attorneys can provide and building up that network. So, you know, we're always here for you. Anything that you have, any questions, any concerns, any ideas, please email us at feedback@msba.org or reach out to any of us at the MSBA. We are all working remotely. We're all working full time, and we're available and here for you. And I'll turn to Angela Monroe now, who is the section liaison. Angela, could you give us an update?
Sure. Good morning, everybody. Well, the section was very busy planning some educational programs and networking events for the remainder of the year. Today was actually supposed to be the annual charity event. I know we have been discussing postponing it to the fall. I know we have Nate Risch and Liz Rosen. She is the incoming chair. If you guys want to jump in and give any updates on that.
Well, we don't have too much of an update. First off, I just want to say thank you for everybody for joining in this morning. I'm seeing a lot of familiar faces and some new faces. Peggy, congratulations. I haven't seen you in a while. Peggy was recently married, and Josh, hopefully by January next year, we'll be able to jump back into the Bay. But with that being said, we have held off right now on rescheduling the charity event, in large part because we're trying to figure out the best way to do it. Obviously, the big question mark is, when are you going to be able to put 200 people in a room together? And no one knows the answer. And at the same time, there is no rush to to plan something. I mean, there are venues out there we've discovered that, quite frankly, have shut down for the remainder of 2020 as a business decision, with the expectation that they won't be able to hold large events. And should the charity event, should that happen, and that push us, towards 2021, we're exploring options of combining this year's charity event with next year's. And it's something that we're keeping an eye on and taking the pulse of, and we'll make the decision as soon as it's reasonably practicable. I know that this year's charity, My Law, had generated a lot of interest. We had a strong fundraising campaign before the whole world shut down. We certainly hope that we can help them in the future and go forward. Angela mentioned some of the programming that we have going on as well. One of the big things that the Young Lawyers section does is it has a DLS program that's run through the ABA. Typically, when a major disaster is declared, the federal government will authorize the DLS program, Disaster Legal Services, and provide funding through the Stafford Act. That didn't happen with COVID-19 emergency. So we've been working to coordinate with our local legal services corporations, particularly the Access to Justice Commission, to put the attorneys who want to volunteer to work. Because there are certainly opportunities. We have provided opportunities to over 70 attorneys just through our DLS network, let alone the ones that have done independently, to get involved with, whether it's, Pro Bono Resource Center, Maryland Legal Aid, a whole host of them. And if anyone wants to email me about that, we can certainly add you to the list and provide you to where, you can help now, in addition to the help that's going to be needed over the next year. I don't think anyone's going to be shocked if we're litigating things about this for the next 10 years. But more immediately, there are going to be people that are going to have employment issues, labor issues, housing issues, insurance issues that are going to be immediate over, as things, continue to progress. And we want to make sure that those that can't otherwise access legal services have the opportunity for free or low cost. And that's one of the things that we're working on, providing and shaping to what is a rather unique situation.
Nate,
Angela?
I'm sorry, Nate, just as a follow-up to that, can you
Yeah.
walk through, and I don't know if you have this process yet, but if someone is interested and they contact you, what does that look like in terms of the next steps for them? Is there specific training to them? How does that work?
Sure. So as it is right now, the DLS was set up to deal with sort of, think of hurricane, think of an earthquake, not think of a 50-state pandemic that's really touched every level of everyone's life. And so the ABA, and therefore we don't have particular training to that. However, we do have avenues to connect people with the local legal services organizations who can provide training. For instance, the Pro Bono Resource Center has a tremendous catalog of video and written training seminars on issues that they deal with, from foreclosures to landlord-tenant to debt and credit relief, that you can go and have free access to, with the understanding that if you do access it, then you then provide some service to folks. We're still shaping it in terms of things that are individualized to this particular emergency, but other organizations have experienced attorneys that can provide assistance, and certainly those that are already involved, to the extent that we can offer any in-person, whether it's a 30-minute chat about, hey, this is what you can expect, we're willing to do that.
Thanks, Nate. I'd open it up now to just get a sense. I know we have it looks like almost 20 people on the call. Just to sort of start off and hear what your experiences have been in terms of transitioning out in May, probably now to a remote setting, any challenges that you faced, and maybe any initial client experiences, if you can share. And I'll add that I know we've had quite a variety in the webinars that we've seen in terms of setting up a remote office. You have people that are parts of really large firms, you have solos, you have civil aid organizations that are not, were not set up for that at all and had to really jump in for that. So I think just hearing from any of you about your experiences in terms of setting up with that, and maybe any of the platforms that you're using for communication, that's been a helpful conversation that we've had during some of these talks. And we always have the chat function too, if anybody wants to jump in there.
I'm happy to start. I'm kind of an unusual candidate in this pool because I work as a prosecutor here, but we actually have been required to go to work probably about once a week on a very limited staff basis. We do a bunch of Zoom meetings to get our units together, but I actually have virtual court probably once a week. Howard County, we've continued to hold protective order hearings, bail reviews. I actually did my first guilty plea yesterday via GoToMeeting, so that was pretty interesting. But I certainly appreciate that the courts are still trying to hold meaningful hearings if we can work towards resolution to kind of just try to prevent any much of this glut that we're going to have in terms of backup as we head in towards the fall and the winter. I know, at least for the criminal jury trials, I feel personally for the civil lawyers, because in a county as small as Howard, I'm just not sure how civil jury trials are going to get off the ground with so many backed up criminal cases. But we're also in MDEC County. I feel for the people who are in Prince George's and Montgomery County, Baltimore City. I just have no idea how that's going for you all in terms of filing and correspondence. I think one of the counties was trying to use Dropbox at one point. I don't know if anyone has experience with that, but Nate and I also sit on the Board of Governors. We've been doing calls with them. So any feedback that you guys have, we are so happy to take that to the BOG and use that for whatever it's worth. Richard Montgomery's been awesome, keeping us apprised of how everything's going. So hopefully something I've said has sparked somebody else, and I'll stop talking.
Yeah, I think that the filing piece of it, there's been a lot of feedback. If anyone has experience in those Dropbox counties or places that have started to implement a virtual process, I think that would be great to hear about.
We actually, up in Harford County, we had a Zoom chat, and we were told during that the judiciary can't hold any meetings via Zoom. So it was off the record for our local bar. But district court and circuit courts both said that we would not be able to do what we're doing if not for MDEC. We've been having, kind of like Howard County, we've been doing protective order hearings. We've been doing specific hearings in the circuit court. Guardianships are still happening. And then, of course, the criminal aspects like bails and things along those lines. We have started to do Dropbox as a method of kind of pre-trial discovery exhibits and entering exhibits, so that way everything is kind of all set up for when trials are taking place. And that's been not only okayed but encouraged by the administrative judges. The other thing too that I have found to be kind of helpful is with the representation of my clients. I represent a lot of kids in custody cases, and having a kid on the phone, having pretty much anybody who isn't a teenage girl on the phone doesn't really work out when you represent a kid, and they aren't really open to talking with their attorney for a long period of time anyway. So having Google Hangouts, having Zoom, and we have a commercial account, so I'm able to do it with a password. But setting that up has been really helpful because, I have been able to talk with my clients, my kid clients, to find out how things are going with them. It's opening my eyes to tap into other resources for them, like if they're not able to get in touch with their mental health providers or with somebody else who isn't technologically caught up with everybody. So, but it has been a bit of a learning curve because, where it would be easy to just have somebody come in for a meeting, we've got to set up, different ways of doing things, or COVID has, interrupted people's employments and things along those lines. So, the courts have set up here, even though we've continued things going on and we've continued processes and done status conferences, they've said that, once the courts open back up, it's going to be just an overload of cases and of things, and, stuff's going to get bumped out because we've got to prioritize. So it's kind of, I'm just kind of waiting to see how it all unfolds and, how the process is. They said that we're going to continue to update, on policies and what our processes are going to be and procedures, because it seems to be kind of like the judiciary and kind of like MSBA has been sending out changes on, a daily or weekly basis. We're continuing to get the changes. I don't know how it is with other courts, but I do know that they've started in Harford County that if you go into the courthouse, anybody, including a judge, is required to have their temperature taken. So they've got one of those forehead thermometers in the circuit court that you're required to have your temperature taken. And if you have, I think it's 100.4 degrees, you're not able to come into the building at all. It doesn't matter if you've got a mask, if you've got a case, anything like that. And they are requesting, even if you're available to come in, that if you can do a remote hearing or a remote access by Skype, by anything else, that you do that as opposed to coming into court. So that's what I've got from up here.
Well, I think what Eleni said is true. It is something where it is different from county to county. I mean, even just yesterday, I think Baltimore City issued an order where, in an effort to prevent a total glut of civil discovery, which is unfortunately often a contentious issue, but is probably the least priority in terms of, what the courts can deal with right now. They are asking you to paper file and to email it to a new email address that folks have set up. So that way, presumably after the 18 days, it can get kicked over to a judge who can rule on it from home. One of the interesting things that, and this is more lighthearted than anything else, but it's still kind of important because it's being done, is, courthouse or courtroom decorum. I'm sitting here in a button-down shirt and a pair of jogging shorts. And I think that's pretty much, the standard operating procedure for most people when they do these meetings. But, there are people that are doing, whether it be through Skype, whether it be through GoToMeeting, whether it be through Hangout, court appearances, and they're rolling in hoodies. And look, you wear your, Hail to the Redskins hoodie when you're appearing before a judge. It's still like you're sitting there in court. And there are a lot of people that would, a lot of judges will just let it go, but there are some who will take it out on you. And, you've heard about it, I'm sure, allegorically through whether it be the Maryland Lawyers Facebook page or through, different postings and what of judges just letting into people. And nonetheless, I was having a chat with friends last night while we were watching the NFL draft, and someone texted me a picture of what their bail review waiting room looked like, and it's people that are in t-shirts and doing different things who wouldn't be caught dead with it. So it's just something to keep in mind as well. But I don't want to take the floor too long.
And they just, Liz has written in the chat, for the record, she had on a full suit and heels yesterday, even if nobody knew. For herself, that's what she had going on. Mm-hmm. And I do think, Lisa spoke earlier in the call, Lisa Kaplan, about kind of, these rituals that we have and things that we're used to doing in our practice have totally just gone by the haywire. And it's up to ourselves to create that for us every day. And, whether it's having a dedicated space for your work, or a routine for how you're connecting with your clients or how you're getting ready for a hearing, I think all of those are still so important because, your clients are beyond frazzled, facing, as Nate said, a lot of really new and novel issues that they never thought they'd be facing. So to the extent that we can make sure we're taking care of ourselves first before we're getting in front of a judge or having that client meeting, I think that is really important and really helpful. One of the things that we wanted to know is, obviously the MSBA has a lot of resources and the section is very active and supportive in your emails. What are the other areas that you as the young lawyer section are going to find, community and information and support to kind of get you through this time.
How many people feel like they've walked 10,000 miles in their neighborhood in the last 30 days? Raise your hand.
Yeah, I think sometimes that does the trick, just getting out the door. One of the things that we are really hearing from, one of the groups that we're really hearing from, that we're thinking about, are recent law school graduates. And, the judge spoke about this earlier today. Recent law school graduates are young lawyers who are facing employment challenges. And especially through this section, we were thinking about ways that we can continue to support those individuals. And we wanted to know from you all your thoughts on, on that issue, and ways in which we can continue to support them, whether it's through volunteer opportunities, the wellness resources, or things like that. What your experiences have been.
While people are thinking of answers to Shali's question, I just want to bring one sort of related issue. And that is, there are going to be a lot of law school graduates who were set to take the bar in July. The Maryland State Board of Law Examiners is making the decision, I think, on May 22nd about whether to hold a July bar, whether to push it back into September, or whether it can, even happen at all. Other states are beginning to consider ways to allow recent law school graduates to practice almost as a Rule 16 attorney if they can have certain supervision, which isn't currently contemplated under Rule 16. The University of Maryland Law School has written a letter to the Board of Law Examiners and Chief Judge Barbera asking for that consideration. I think the state of New Jersey has actually implemented that, and under certain conditions will allow that to happen. The University of Maryland came to the Young Lawyers section and asked for a vote of confidence, if you would, or a letter of support that we're considering getting. So if anyone has any thoughts on that as well, in addition to Shali's comments, that would be great.
I don't want to talk too much because I know that there are other people on this.
Go ahead, please.
At the beginning of this week, I actually had a chance, or actually, I guess it was Wednesday. I don't know what day it is. But I had a chance to speak with a 3L at University of Baltimore. Part of, I guess, one of their projects was to talk with an attorney. And so he and I were kind of talking, and I asked him about this. And, there were a lot of mixed emotions. Like, fortunately, he's got a clerkship, but he's also wondering, how's that going to be? What's that going to be like, type of deal. I think, one of the just questions, and it's not so much a concern, but a question that I would have is, if we were to allow or have a Rule 16 type of approach for the graduating law students to be practicing supervised, is there a time limit in place where, they're allowed to be doing this until the bar is, again, being administered? Is there kind of a time limit so that, they're not, for the next 5 years, finding a new attorney or finding something new and practicing supervised on that end. As it is, though, I would be for it, just kind of making sure that because when I started practicing, and, when I signed, got my certificate and everything that I'm a Maryland attorney, was when I started becoming aware of all the resources that MSBA has. The lawyer assistance program, everything within that, just, all the resources available to me, not even within the specific sections, but just being a part of MSBA. And really, you as a law student, you get kind of a taste of that, but you really don't. fully because you're still a law student. You don't understand that there are resources and that things completely change once you start practicing as a young attorney, as a young, whether you're a female attorney, whether you're a minority attorney, whatever, just you have a lot of different struggles that you never see coming. So, I think just on, when we move forward and kind of, vote of confidence, whatever it is that they're needing, within reason, also making sure that, the MSBA as an entity is also giving them kind of some resources and stuff like that to help them out. Because, for me, that was really great to have other people who were in the same boat as me who, I didn't go to school in Maryland for law school. So starting practicing in Maryland, it was really nice meeting. This was a great way for me to meet other Maryland attorneys, other attorneys who practice the same law that I do, other attorneys who are in the same area that I am, who I wouldn't have otherwise met. So it was a really great way for me to be able to connect and not feel alone. And particularly right now, that's what we need is community, to not be feeling alone. So thanks.
No, I agree. And to quickly answer that question about time frame, I think what's being contemplated is, whenever the bar exam is issued next, that it would certainly last through that. If you didn't sign up for it, you'd lose the ability to practice. If you took it and you didn't pass, once you found out, notice that you didn't pass, you'd lose the ability to practice. And if you did pass, that ability would carry over until you're sworn in.
Just to jump off of your last comment, Lenny, I did want to give an update about the annual meeting, because that is often a great, place where we can have young lawyers and senior lawyers and retired lawyers and any lawyer from everywhere, come into Ocean City and just having a wonderful time, both socially, and also we had planned, 80 plus substantive topics and 8 learning tracks. We were going to have Madeleine Albright and Nina Totenberg as our keynotes. So, those opportunities to have community, unfortunately, our Board of Governors just made a call, had to make the call that due to the health and safety concerns, we won't be able to host it this year. But I wanted to let everyone on this call know, and we'll be sending messaging out soon, that we are looking at alternatives and we are looking at ways to make sure that that content and that community aspect is still available to all of you, whether it's through a summer learning series maybe that takes some of that content and is available to everyone, whether it's through continuing our connections events that we've hosted in a couple of counties and in DC in person, shifting that to a virtual platform. And then we're also considering putting together a legal excellence week in the fall, which would take a lot of our fall programming and put it together into a week of programs that would include some of our, learning institutes, and it would take our solo and small firm summit, and then some of the practice updates, and just putting it all together in a week and packaging it with some other keynotes and things like that. So we're really excited, and we hope that the momentum continues to continue that community, because even if Ocean City is canceled, we're not canceled. So we want everybody to know that. And I know, Andrea, if you're still on the call, I think you are, maybe you could jump in and talk about some of those institutes that we're considering for the Excellence Week.
Yeah, for sure. The pandemic has unfortunately caused the postponement of some of the section's signature events. The Estates and Trust section, their Advanced Estate Planning Institute, the Business Law section, their Advanced Business Law Institute, Real Property, Employment Law. A lot of those happen annually in the spring, and they have all been postponed. And a lot of organizations are trying to reschedule events into the fall. And so these events were all planned, and speakers were committed, preparation had been done. And so we think it's really exciting to bring the synergy of top content from all the sections and put it into 1 week, one location. There can be a lot of economies of scale in having the events in one location in 1 week, but also a lot of kind of energy and excitement around having that kind of content available to all of our members. So we're pretty excited about that, and it's been well received so far by the sections who were really wondering what was going to happen to all the effort that they put into planning all-day events. They frequently spend the entire year basically planning for next year, similar to what we do for our annual meeting. So stay tuned for more on that. It's really pretty exciting.
And I would say to this group in particular, if you have ideas or anything that you think could help contribute to that week or just to our programming in general, as we're all virtual right now, please reach out to us. Any of us, Angela is your section liaison, but all of us are available to really just be creative about how we are putting ourselves out there and making sure we're staying updated and staying connected. Angela, do we have anything else in the chat right now that you want to update us on?
No, there wasn't anything else on the chat except for Nate was very excited for the Sun Run. He's going to continue to train for it.
Yes, yes. And that's where the neighborhood walks and runs can come into really good use. Well, does anyone have anything else they'd like to add in? I know we just have a couple of minutes left, but I just wanted to thank everyone on behalf of the MSBA for joining us this morning and staying connected and just doing what you do. I think that opportunities like this morning are a really nice way for us to just remember, we're on a path, that we have a community, and that we're all here for each other. And I know that this conversation can continue offline. The section list is a great way if you have a quick question or practice pointer, like you were telling us Harford County, what the procedures are. All of that is just incredibly helpful to someone who, may be feeling overwhelmed or just might not have that information pipeline.
Shally, this is Andrea. Can I
yes, jump in.
Add a quick comment here? I know there's been a lot of discussion about how things are going county by county, and the family law section has been working really hard on putting together a presentation that's going to go on Wednesday of next week at 1 o'clock, and they're hoping to have a summary of how custody and visitation matters are being handled county by county. So I wanted to make sure everybody was aware of that, and if you haven't seen that on your listserv, we've been sending it daily out on the family law listserv, ADR, Young Lawyers, Solo. So if you haven't seen that, let me know and I will get you the link. It'll also be available on demand within 2 hours after the live presentation. So I just wanted to make everybody aware of that.
And it's also on our COVID page. If you go to the webinars, you click through to webinars, you can register directly through there. And it also has all of our on-demand webinars, which are also, available as podcasts and YouTube, however you would like to consume them.
Really quickly on that, to piggyback off of Andrea's, Craig Borchers has kind of been working to put together a small series of family law CLEs and webinars. So the one that's going to be coming up next week is going to be the first in kind of a series within section council members kind of presenting ideas. And none of the rest of them have been scheduled or anything like that. But that there are going to be more, and also that Angela was working with us as well. Family law section is going to be doing a coffee talk next Thursday on the 30th at 8:30. So other updates and stuff like that, family law related, if anybody's interested, and jurisdiction to jurisdiction, we're going to have that. Sorry, thanks.
Well, thank you. That's wonderful. I was just about to mention that. So we're glad to have that. And I think it'll be great because it'll be right after this wonderful presentation that Andrea mentioned. So I thank everyone for their time. If you've still got coffee in your mug, then please sip it up and enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks, Nate. Angela, I think she's done with hers. I don't know. But thanks again for everyone to join who joined this morning, and just stay in touch. We'll follow up anything you need. Feel free to reach out to Angela or any of us.
Thanks
So
everybody.
much. Bye.
Thanks, everybody.